Go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I have the vote, please.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Mrs. Grant,
Here.
Mr. Cuomo,
Here.
Mrs. Smith.
Here. Thank you, Kelsey. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as Ryan submitted it to us this afternoon? There's just one possible correction under 7A. I don't know, it's up to you whether we approve the board goals. I had intended to talk about them tonight and approve them in October, but if they look all right, we'll go ahead and do them. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with that possible correction needed? Dora, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ken. Have the roll, please.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Cuomo,
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes. Then we have the regular board meeting on August 15th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes as Kelsey submitted them to us?
Second.
Okay, moved by Israel, second by Kent. We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Cuomo,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. And Mr. Kirk, thank you for being here this evening. We'll turn it over to you for the sponsors report.
So I just appreciate the collaboration with TCS. Kelsey presented to our board last night, the TCS report. Ryan's done it, so even if those two are tied up with something, they always get to report to me where I can convey that onto our board, so it's been very successful. So thank you to both of them for doing that. Just some of the things I reported last night to our board as sponsor. The fact that we met and talked about your new legal counsel and some goals you have moving forward with that. Ryan's reporting to us on your report card. Our report card was a 4.5 out of 5 until September 6th when they changed data, and now it's a 4 out of 5. But we're still exceeds expectations, and we have many 5s on our report card, but we have some areas to improve. Nothing was deficient. But we have to improve. One thing that we're proud of is we're only 3 out of 5 in early listening, but I'm going to pass this around. This is a summary of our literacy initiative that I the superintendent conference I went to a week ago. I just want you to have that information. There were 25 literacy and learning grants for $200,000 that went out to districts across the state. There's 613 districts, and Margaret got one of those. And then the other thing that happened was, when the governor this summer talked about his biennium budget, first thing he led off with was literacy and the science of reading. Following that address, his person in Columbus that does lead his literacy initiative called 2 districts. She called Pickerington and she called Margaret local. So in the past, not this past summer, the summer before, Trinette Novak and Tia Baldoff testified in front of the State Board of Education on the Margaret Literacy Initiative. So we think our arrows are pointed in the right direction. And if you've ever implemented like change or taken on ELA, sometimes you dip down a bit before you start coming back up because you're changing. So what I think is going to happen is, especially with our early literacy, instead of being a 3 out of 5, I think that's going to go out of 5 out of 5 quick. And our early literacy thing is not just directed at primary and intermediate and elementaries. We're working really hard, and if you look at kids, how they score, and even your kids here at TCS, the ones that score well on ACTs, their usage of vocabulary, their acquisition of vocabulary and their usage of vocabulary is key to those standardized tests and understanding questions and being able to come back with good answers, especially where there's essay response questions. You have to have a strong knowledge of vocabulary. So as we work through this, even up in our high school level, we're really trying to hammer vocabulary. So we're excited about that. I'm never ever, again, because of the 90s, going to chase a report card. We're going to do what we think is important. So if you look on the back of that, we have focus areas for our classroom. No matter what you teach, if you're doing that in your classroom, and you're going to have good instruction. If you're looking at the data from your kids and the knowledge that your kids can show you what they know how to do, and you're adjusting your instruction to that, you're going to be a really strong teacher. So we're looking really hard at that and trying to drive that home with fidelity. So we're excited about that. And then, emergency drills. It's almost like you can't do enough emergency drills. I like the fact that we're coordinating with what's going on with TCS of when to do our emergency drills and what to do. We have Brian goes, there's meetings over here that we come to, our district comes to, and we coordinate because we're right together. You know, we're right here together and we work together and we share SROs, and something happens over here, our SRO comes over and helps you guys, and if something happens over there, they come and help us. So we're gonna keep doing that. And I just want to make sure that you as a board know that we're collaboratively working together to be as safe as we can for our kids. So we keep working on that emergency drills. And again, the collaboration is much better than what it was in the past. Years ago. It's great. It seems like our arrows are pointed in the right direction. And the other thing is, I don't know if Ryan's reported to you or he will today, just the fact that at your Fremont location, and this guy was way against TCS. He reached out to the superintendent at Fremont, him and I talked about it, we kind of put a game plan together, he did it. I mean, it's just his idea, but he had him come over and look at your facilities, and you had like 37 kids in there working on work that he's seen in his schools, that he's having expulsion meetings and whatnot, and I think he was kind of blown away. And I know Ryan's gonna keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. I think Ryan's gonna keep bringing him in so we can see what they're doing. Now, I think they had a conversation about a possible another school trying to come in there and maybe not running things the way you guys are running things because you're running the way. So I think that was great.
Very good. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move over public participation and go into the board member liaison reports. I too want to thank Ed and Margaretta for the collaboration that's occurred with the sponsor. I know Kent is right on top of all of that. We have talked a couple of times, not just with the lawyers, but also at the sponsor meeting, and I think we're going in a good direction. I did want to let you know that I had a phone conference with Amy Goodson. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that later tonight. But I continue to feel that we're getting a good response from the legal counsel that we have. She's working with Brian DeSantis, who's the lawyer for Margaretta, and I think that's real positive. In terms of legislation, there's a lot of talking going on. There isn't a whole lot of action going on with legislation, but I just wanted to double check to make sure everyone's getting the reports, the news flashes. Are you getting those via email?
Yes.
So that you're able to follow those. Kent, did you have anything else you wanted to add under the sponsors?
I mean, I would like to say that I think we're working really well with Margaret right now. I think we have a great relationship. You know, those meetings, we get something done and accomplished. And, you know, we kind of shared with them on what our approach is going to be to maybe get out of some, you know, bills that are strapping us. And we can go over that later too, but I think we're on the right path on how we're going to approach that with ODE, and you know, that's basically all that I have.
Okay. Did anyone else have anything? Is there really have anything
Nope, I do.
separate? All right. We'll move on to the goals. And if you look at the goals, and I have a copy for you too. Yes. On one side of this sheet, you'll find the 23-20 or the 22-23 goals. And I believe we're going to be doing a better job of writing the goals to make the measurements a little bit easier to compile the information. The goals were written in such a way that it became very difficult to group the data that we had, but we had one goal, which was to increase our language arts and of course competency scores by 1%, and that did not occur. In fact, we had a reduction in that. So we have some recommendations. Ryan and I and Kelsey and their team have talked about how we can focus on that. Israel was I think Israel, you were part of that conversation.
Yep.
And then when we look at the math algebra, we see that we did increase from 20% to 22%. But we're not happy with the 22%. We're happy with the increase. But one of the things that we really felt we needed to do with that low competency is emphasize math. Math with the staff, math with the students, math with staffing, and Ryan will talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. You recall that we've had presentations on the positive behavior supports, the interventions, the PBIS programs where you start with a tier 1. That's where everyone receives the same interventions. There's no special teacher working with the kids. They're universal interventions. And then tier 2 is when you begin to introduce higher level interventions that sometimes involve extra staffing. We were hoping to be able to move into that tier 2 level, but at this point in time, we're still at tier 1, but we're incorporating tier 1 interventions, not just here, but also at Fremont. So adding those extra sites complicated things a bit, and from what I understand from Ashley, the goal is to fully implement tier 1 interventions and supports, and then gradually build to tier 2. Do you have anything else to add? Okay. The sustainability goal that we had here in terms of student enrollment at 600 was met at an average of 530, and you saw from Ryan's report over the weekend that we're at 549 already here. So we really felt that what was equally as important as the numbers is the fact that we have increased a site by moving to that Fremont area. We have to keep in mind also that Kelsey will reflect this in her report when we talk about the 5-year forecast, that we are getting more funding per student. So we may, while 600 may be a viable goal for us, the finances coming in, financial support from the state is higher with the students that we have. And then finally, under the career focus goal that we had, we wanted to be sure that our students were establishing their career readiness goals. And that Tim Warwick, as students are graduating, Tim Warwick is collecting that data, but it hasn't been consolidated. So when that information is available, we'll go ahead and report it, but it was available for tonight. Do you have any questions on those goals or comments? Then if you look at the goals that we have, that we were working on, again, this was in, this was in cooperation with Israel, Kelsey, Brian, myself, and then I know they had, we've had other input. Plus, I used the one plan that the administrative staff had developed for Townsend. So all of these goals that we have here are also part of the one plan and incorporated into it. So number 1 is obvious, where we want to raise that competency by 2% for both English and math. We want to really try to boost that as measured by vocabulary instruction, which is something Anne's already talked about in formative assessments. I'm suggesting that number 2 be considered so that we can sustain and increase our enrollment and attendance levels by 1% in all of our counties that we serve to further support and enable equitable and diverse services across all of our students' needs. One of the suggestions in the one plan is that Ryan Stamp will be developing a mentoring plan. And I know Israel was real positive about that too, where the kids are going to be mentored, where staff members will be mentored, and I think that sounds pretty exciting, actually. Under number 3, we would like to build student wellness within the school and community through developing implementation of weekly school-based and community-based activities. So our students will be engaged and also be able to access services in the community. We would measure that through weekly schedules, student surveys, data regarding levels of student participation, and the development of a new seal called the Student Engagement Seal. And it's really neat. This time, when I signed diplomas this past week, Eileen had done a beautiful job of taking our diploma and on it, putting each of the seals that the students had earned right onto the diploma. And it was really neat. I don't know if you have it, if she's distributed those.
She hasn't done her office.
Okay, I commented, I said, oh, this is new, this is great to see these seals. So one of the seals will be student engagement. She did a real nice job on it. And then finally, we were very excited. This is kind of, Kelsey will be talking a little bit more about this in a minute too, about student wellness funds. Jackie and I met on 2 different occasions with Kelsey and Ryan about the funds that are available for student wellness, and really felt that working with families and family engagement was important, that was one of the areas that we really felt if we could improve on, it would improve the quality, perhaps not just of our student, but of the entire family. So we have a goal addressing that. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what's your pleasure? Would you like to take a look at these a little bit more closely and vote on them in October, or would you care to adopt them this evening? And if so, I'll entertain a motion.
That we adopted this evening.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Dora? Very good.
I really like them before.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Good. Good.
the family stuff is, that's important.
Very good. All right, we'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mrs. Grant?
Yes,
Mr. Cuomo?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And I'm excited about these, and I think as a board, we'll see reasons for that support as we go through the year. And did you have any questions about that?
Great.
Okay, we'll move on to Kelsey and the treasurer's report.
First, we're gonna start with just some informational updates. So our ESBA MOE update, which you'll recall is our general fund spending, different from our IDA MOE, the SPED MOE. In FY22, we failed and we applied for a waiver, and I have been on them all year about trying to hear back. They still do not have a response on that, but we have passed for fiscal year 23, so.
All right.
Next, we can go ahead and take a look at our Student Wellness and Success Fund spending plan. So that looks like this.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't think I stapled this like perfectly in order, so you might bounce around a little bit. So as we
Does
mentioned,
Mr. Kerr have a copy?
it was over there.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, very
So as Jean mentioned, we have some excess student wellness and success funds. Essentially what happened is we first got these in 2019, 2020, right during COVID. And for the first 2 years, we accumulated about $500,000 worth of student wellness funds that were not spent. So since then, we've done a better job of spending close to what we're getting each year, but because we had that initial buildup, we have quite a bit that if we do not spend by June 2025, we will have to pay back. So the goal is to spend it. We looked at multiple different, we've brainstormed quite a bit of ideas, and we've come up with some good ideas and the general direction of where we want to go with it. So Carrie and Karen currently both come out of our student wellness funds already, so they will continue. Leslie Gaynor, our new guidance counselor, her expense will also come out of this, but keep in mind, we're only paying 25% of her expense because of the mental health grant. We will also pay 25% of, she has a supply budget that is included in that mental health grant, so we will also pay that 25% out of student wellness and success funds. We're looking at implementing group therapy for students. Actually, Leslie sent out an email today, I think, that she wants to start the first anxiety group therapy, get that going. So it's $23 per participant per session, and they, I've talked with Sandusky Family Health Services, and since this is not covered by insurance, they are good to bill us for it. We also are.
But that's done on site?
Yes,
Or is
it's
it
here.
done?
No, it's here.
It's here.
Yeah, Leslie will facilitate, or not Leslie, sorry. She might be helping Sandusky Family Health Services facilitate, but it would get billed us.
Okay.
We're working with Erie County Health Department to set up where we can pay for student physicals. A lot of our students need that for their work permits. And they're in, I think Karen's working on developing some kind of form that they can fill out that lets them know, hey, we're gonna bill Townsend for this student. Also, just to note on the right, I've noted each of the allowable uses, just so we can kind of keep track of where we're hitting the goals in their allowable uses that they recommend. Next, we are looking into hiring 2 student engagement and family engagement specialists. We got quite a bit of applicants. The cost is going to be a little under the $34,125 per person in salary. Benefits may vary. We are also with this position looking to potentially purchase 2 vans. I am trying very hard to get someone to tell me that it's an allowable expense before we go ahead and pull that trigger. The ODE, when I reached out with some specific questions, basically just recommended I review the guidance, and Jean can attest the guidance is very broad. So I'm hoping that as long as I spin it pretty nicely, that they don't audit these funds quite as closely as they do. I do have to report on them yearly, but I think we're gonna be okay. I ran it by Amy because the student wellness and success uses are actually in the. See what she had to say about it. She was not giving me like a direct, like, yes, I think it is, but she said, sounds good to me, so. I'm taking that as somewhat of a green light. So I'm gonna try and dig a little further, but we are looking into the vans. Karen is also working on getting some family engagement nights going in each of our locations, not even necessarily just our 3 building sites, but also in some of the other areas that we service, like Norwalk. We're looking at potentially renting space or just establishing some more community partnerships. So we're excited about that. We're excited to get families in and engage with them.
And if I could just interject, because I know Dora would appreciate this, we talked about having those for a specific purpose.
Yes.
So that it wouldn't just be calm.
Yeah, come and we'll
But-
say hi
Yeah.
and feed you. No,
That's-
I think they're gonna have kind of like themes, certain uses. I think if we use them for some educational purposes as well, I know educating families is a big part of engaging them. And
Well, if they decide to do something that's best, let me know, because I can probably help move the site.
awesome. That would be great. We've also moved Karen's community liaison position and her mileage out of ESSER funds, and we are now using the student wellness funds. We're looking into getting staff CPR certified. Karen has met with Ohio Guidestone, and she and I are collaborating on getting some professional development as well as speakers for the students. We met with the Erie County Health Department and discussed vaccinations, dental and vision services. This is in motion. We have some plans to bring out the dental van and do a vaccination clinic. Unfortunately, it is at no cost to us. They have their own grants to use, but it will be positive for our students, so we're still excited about it. And then finally, we met with Family Services of Erie County to talk about job coaching for our students. We met with them last Monday, and I actually haven't heard back about our next meeting. They seemed optimistic that they could figure something out, but as of right now, I don't have any further information on where that's going.
Could with our students on IEPs, could we use the, it used to be the Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation, but the name is escaping me right now, Ohio. Do you know, David? The OAD, OOAD, Ohio for Opportunities of People with Disabilities, I think. They would work, they do job coaching and job mentoring for students on IEPs.
Is that at no cost then?
Not necessarily.
County will be the Department of Development.
Mhm.
I know,
For education, it's
Karen.
exceptional.
Karen Berg works pretty closely with OOD, because that's who we bill for our free ads that she does. She implements free ads and bills them, so she has a pretty good contact, so maybe I can meet
Okay,
with her.
yeah, the MRTP program. Do you have any questions about how do they sound, these ideas and these expansions of services and things?
I like the idea that we're gonna be working with the family, because that's always key, you know, it's always been a thing, when you try to fix the child, and then you put that child back with that family. They're still in the same chaos, so if you work with everybody, it's always better.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about some of the ideas and how they're kind of taking shape. We're gonna work as hard as we can to have as small of a payback as possible, ideally $0. Once we get into the fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 student wellness funds, they just released new guidance about those, and we do have to meet a 50% requirement for mental or physical health. It shouldn't be a problem, because right now we're getting about 150,000, and Carrie and Leslie together will make up that 50%, so we should be fine, but just something to keep in mind moving forward. Next, I wanted to touch base on our ODE repayment schedule, so I think that should be next if we flip. We've been looking at this recently, talking around ideas of offering a payback amount. If you look to September of 23, we're currently at a balance of right around 3 million. So we've been considering offers that we can make to try and eliminate some of this debt with ODE. We've worked closely with Amy on that. As of right now, we're looking to pay back into 2030. It looks like January 2031 we're done. So we would like to eliminate that cost while we've got a nice bank account balance, while we can do that, and eliminate those payback funds in the future. Does anybody have any questions over our repayment schedule?
No, we'll come back to that in a little bit.
Next, I do have some sped expenditure updates from Ashley. We have a new student that just moved in from Texas. She underwent surgery on September 18th to remove her second leg. She already had one. She's gonna need both PT and OT. These are not services that we've had to pay for in the past, so this is gonna be a new expense. We can't use presence learning because telehealth isn't best practice. Ashley did get a recommendation from Kathy Hall, so she is looking into that. There's a planned meeting scheduled for October 10th at 10 a.m. to give the student a bit of time for recovery. Rest assured, getting all accommodations for her Texas IEP. With that, though, we do have a lot of SPED students coming in with some unprecedented needs. And Ashley is tossing around the idea of needing to add 2 parapros. So again, that's a cost that we hadn't had at the beginning of the year that we hadn't necessarily planned for, that might come and might be absolutely necessary.
And what district is this person? Just had the surgery?
I'm not sure what district she's in now. I just know she moved from Texas. I don't know where she was in. Okay. Next, we can move on to our financial reports, so we can go ahead and get past the minutes. First, we have our cash reconciliation. You can see we ended the month with $7,451,397.01. Next, we can move on to disbursements. Nothing too out of the ordinary, but I did circle some things just to touch on. If you go about 3/4 way down the page, you'll see $145,000 payment to Adina. We still have quite a few payments to make to them. I emailed John last week and asked about it because I haven't received any further invoices. He has not either. I reached out to Adina just to check on the billing. I haven't received a response yet, but hopefully soon.
You say we have quite a few yet?
Yeah, we've only made a few payments to them, so we should have quite a bit of a balance left to pay.
Okay,
So I just wanted to check on it,
okay.
but I haven't heard.
Maybe they'll forget about it.
No, I was sending test ones, so I'd rather they did it. On the next page, and I apologize, I don't know maybe yours is mine double sided, okay. Oh, shoot. Did they not have it? What's your next page?
Kimberly Bus. Oh, no, wait, I skipped a page.
Okay,
Accounts payable go to communications.
this might not have copied perfectly.
Either one.
Yeah, I did, we were having issues with the copier on Friday. Yeah, I can just recopy the summaries for you, and the disbursement summary and the outstanding disbursement summary are both in the monthly report I send out at the beginning of the month also, so. Well, on the page we go to communications, you'll see a $1,000 payment to Pontifex, that was for 2 months worth of rent. She billed them both together, and then you'll also see our 2 payments to IntegraTherm and Productive Inc. That was for our post-construction cleaning and our post-construction duct cleaning. Those are larger expenses that we don't typically see, a reminder of them. Next, on your outstanding disbursement summary. I did check in with both Carrie Wiedenheft and Becky Wiedenheft about their outstanding checks. Carrie cashed hers, and Becky said she had it and was going to, so I just wanted to make sure that they weren't lost. And other than Kimberly Bus for $5, we look like we're pretty up to date, so. Next, we've got our general fund spreadsheet for the month. And I actually printed what should be labeled as your spending plan summary. It looks like this. Yep. So I have to submit the spending plan summary in our accounting system, and that's what creates these values of what's budgeted for fiscal year 2024. So I just wanted to give you pretty much a summary of what goes into each of these so that you know when we look at it. And I did change the spreadsheet just slightly so that it matches the spending plan. So prior, we had pretty much everything that comes in our state foundation payment on the sheet where I have unrestricted grants and aid. That used to be everything except for the career tech funds. But the way that it goes into the spending plan is actually unrestricted grants, restricted grants. So the restricted grants and aid, instead of just being the career tech education, is now career tech, student wellness funds, disadvantaged pupil impact aid, and the ELL funds. So it's the combination of all 4 of those because those are our restricted grants and aid. And then unrestricted, we've got our base costs, our special education funding, our facilities funding, and then our paybacks. So this is just basically color coded just to keep, just to show you where the totals are coming from, just so you can match it up to our spreadsheet if you're ever curious, just to help you keep track of which funds are where, essentially. On our spreadsheet, you'll see that our August actual in the top right for our vocational tuition was higher than we projected, but it came in pretty low in July, and I thought it would stay pretty consistent, but overall for the year, our total percentage is still below where we would expect to be. So we're fine overall with what we're paying back. If you go to the bottom right, you'll see salaries were a little high, we had vacation cash outs, we paid back personal days, and we had a severance. So the month of August did come in high, but again, we're still on track to be where we should be. We're at 16.69% of what we budgeted, and we expect to be at 16.67, so overall, we're fine. Purchase services were also a little bit high, but again, we had the construction cleaning and the duct cleaning. Those are purchase services we don't normally have. We will have months that come in lower that will balance this out. Our supplies were fairly low. I expect this to be higher in coming months, but we can monitor and adjust as the year goes on. And then our other objects came in lower than what we budgeted. So overall, our budgeted expenses are at 15.79%. We would expect to be at 16.67%. Our total revenue is at 16%. We would expect to be at 16.67%. So revenue is slightly above and expenses are slightly below, which is where we like to be. Our August total came in at a positive of $201,085, and the FTE was 400.56. Are there any questions over the spreadsheet? Okay, if not, we can move on to our foundation payment. Under the annual amount column, you'll notice our facilities funding, so the very last item before the total state support is $400,557 for the year. That has doubled. They doubled the amount per pupil that they're getting for facilities funding, so that gives us a nice increase in our funding for the year. At the very bottom right, you'll see our retirement amounts have been fixed and they are back to normal. So August, we saw an increase to make up for July, and now we're back to normal. So this is where we should expect to see them pretty consistently. Next, I've got our September summary report, and the August one is behind it. Only thing I really wanted to note here is just that we're still being projected right around 5.4 million. They had us come in maybe $100 below, but again, we're right around where they're projecting us. In that regard, however, the next sheet I have for you, it's another chart. If you go to the very back page of this, I've made note of where Townsend Community School is.
Where?
They have our revenue for last year at $5,196,000. They are projecting us to be at 6.2 for this year. They did up kind of the per pupil amounts and the base cost salary and things like that. So I'm assuming if that's going to happen, we'll see the change in October. But as of right now, as you just saw, that our payments are not reflecting that. So when I have our 5-year forecast completed, I finished it today. I stayed with the 5.4 million as of right now, and we are okay in the next couple of years with that. But until I see that change reflected in our payment, I'm not going to reflect it on our 5-year forecast. But if we're thinking optimistically, this is very promising. This would be wonderful. Okay, the last item I have for you is our budget for the year. So that's your last color coded packet. So this is my personal spreadsheet. When I actually go to upload the budget, it has to go into a much uglier, much more complicated spreadsheet. But this one's a little bit more user friendly. I color coded where all the values come from. We've got our general fund budget. The codes are just what we code employees essentially for the salaries and benefits. So just for example, the first one, 001 is just general fund, 1130 is general education, 111 is salary. So if you have a question about any specific code, I can obviously answer it for you, but those are more included for my sake, not necessarily yours. I do have our purchase services broken down, labeled for you, so you can see what those cost estimates are for. Following our general fund budget, we do have our grant budget and our cafeteria budget. One thing I wanted to note for you is that You'll see that the amount in the agenda is slightly higher than what's here. I made an adjustment to the grant budget today. I added in our safety grant spending, so it did raise it to the 5,750,000. We did have some additions. Not just to the safety grant, but also I think to SRA. There was a couple of changes that boosted the grant expense. So I just wanted to note that for you. When I go through and do this, I take the July actual expenses, the August actual expenses. I try to take things into account like vacation cash outs, the fact that the medical premiums are the same all year until they go up in June. One thing to note is just that our budget is pretty fluid. And I say that in regards to the fact that we seem like we do have some random expenses that tend to come up that aren't always planned for. So that's why we review this and we go back over the final appropriations at the end.
Complicated. Very complicated.
The other one, like the one that I upload, is significantly worse, so.
Oh my gosh.
If you want something to focus on, I feel like the top right, just the little breakdown. This part right here,
Yeah.
that's like your summary. But I wanted to give you all the details as well. And if nobody has any questions, that's the end of my.
Thank you for all that information. It's wonderful. I hope us in making good decisions. Is there a motion to approve items A through D of the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second. We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Plummer,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes, thank you, Kelsey, very much.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to the superintendent's report and recommendations. First, the informational.
Thank you very much. I will impressive job, it's tough to follow you. Great job done. To start off with here, let's take a quick look at our breakdown of our enrollment data. Now, this will look a little bit different from the data that I shared at the end of the week, this past week over the weekend in my email. At that time, our enrollment was 549 students. So each school year, there tends to be, after about a 3-week period or so, there tends to be some students that no matter what we do to re-engage them, we don't get a response, we don't get them active. We try to limit that number of students as much as possible to minimize the number of students that are being withdrawn in that first wave at the start of the school year. And we've done a pretty good job of it. However, we still yesterday and today had see Mr. Zirkle withdraw 33 students. So our numbers have dropped since this weekend. We do have enrollment still taking place, however, to continue to build those up. Now, I would not be surprised if several of those 33 students do end up re-enrolling with us. That's a very possible thing to happen. But as of right now, we have 519 students, so we had a drop of about 30 total. We do have 5 graduates already this year, and we ended up with 111 last year. Just looking at some of our areas of largest enrollment, Fremont continues to be top with 89 students. And then again, this is after those withdrawals. Norwalk has really been increasing lately. Norwalk is up to 82 students, so just 7 below Fremont, which it's been quite a change here recently. I'm not exactly sure what is causing that change, but we're here to help those students. Sandusky has increased some as well, which is good to see with our location there. We have 61 students now in Sandusky. And I was pretty excited on Friday, I sent you in a text. We had 21 students at the Sandusky Artisans, which is much higher than what we've seen previously.
Double.
Yeah,
Almost double.
so hopefully that's a trend that continues. I know that Becky had done like 5 enrollments at the Artisans last week, and a lot of those students were starting to come in there. So hopefully we continue to see that trend in both the Sandusky and the Fremont locations. Are there any questions on the enrollment breakdown?
Where was Norwalk at before for 82 as far as
I think we were around like the high 60s, maybe 70.
if they were still top 3? I can't.
They were still
They
number
were still
2,
okay.
but that gap between them and Fremont is really close.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it looks like Tiffin increased.
I will tell you, when we bring the bus in from Norwalk too, it stops in Huron first and picks a few kids up and then goes to Norwalk. We bring a full bus load of students in.
When they call in on the radio, I listen to it all day. Yeah, I can't believe the numbers that. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Unfortunately, we have not had too many discipline issues on the buses so far, which has been positive.
That's
Not gonna-
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just Jason. All right, moving on then, I'd like to take a quick look here at the state report card. I did share that last week with everyone, but just to give you a quick run through. This is based on data from the 2022-23 school year, and I've got it here on the TV for us. This first page here is just a breakdown of some enrollment trends and attendance trends over the past 5 years. Obviously, we know that there was a decrease back in 2018-19 in enrollment because we had been kind of approaching a statewide enrollment radius where we have now limited that down to a 6-county radius in our agreement with ODE back in 2020. So you can see that the attendance has kind of leveled off. And again, this is being measured in FTEs, this number here. So the actual students is higher, but due to tracking FTEs in relation to their attendance, that number is a little bit lower. And then if we look at the attendance rates on the right screen, you can see our attendance trends in the red in comparison to state averages for other schools. Our attendance rate in comparison to, and I need to get clarification on this, but I believe this is all schools, not just dropout prevention schools in this chart here. So based upon this past year, the average statewide was 91%, and ours, keep in mind, we're dropout prevention school, was at 78.4%. This here is the main summary page for our report card. We have an overall rating of exceed standards, which I'm really excited about that. I'm excited because of the work of so many people to accomplish this. Our staff, administration, our board of education, our sponsor, community partners, parents, our bus driver, everybody plays a part in reaching that rating with exceed standards. And then the breakdown of the subcategories, achievement component, this deals with your end of course testing. And again, they're using a rating system that aligns with dropout prevention schools here. This we qualified as meet standards. In progress component rating, we were exceed standards. This goes back to the STAR testing. So STAR testing is done twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. And students are being tested in the areas of math and reading. And what we are hoping to see from fall to spring is growth from those students. And based upon last year's data and the scoring system the state has, we were exceeding standards. And we did start STAR testing for this fall last week. And just to give you an idea of where our students are testing right now, so far our math reading or our math levels are at a 5.6 grade level, and our reading levels are at 6.2. So just gives you an idea. Students coming in, some students have been with us, but a lot of students are new as well. You know, that's where our students are, the 5th grade and 6th grade level for math and reading. Now it's our goal to try to improve that in those areas. Okay, gap closing rating is meet standards. That's where they break it down and look at the different subgroups, different demographics, and look specifically in those areas for growth. We're meet standards there. And then finally, the graduation component is exceed standards. I'm not going to go through each slide here. I've got a lot of slides in this. I shared this in an email last week. But just look, let's go look at the graduation page here. So we have a combined graduation rate of 45.9, which is basically 45.9%. When you factor in all of the different age cohorts, the 4-year graduation rate for last year was 30.4%. And oops, I believe 35% is what's required to exceed standards in that subcategory. Now, we all know that sometimes it's hard for our students to meet that 4-year graduation mark because a lot of students are coming in already on their 3rd or 4th or even 5th, 6th year of high school. I was looking last week, at some of the data that I was sharing with the Fremont superintendent and assistant superintendent. And just over 50% of our students are in year 4 to year 8 of high school. So a majority of our students are for year 4 and beyond. Back to the graduation rates here, 5th year or 5-year graduation rate, we're at 45.3%, which is exceeds standards. 6-year rate was 53.7%, which just exceeds standards. This one's a little bit higher. It's kind of an outlier when you look at it in comparison to the others. And I think part of that is some of the testing requirements that were kind of back down during the COVID era a few years ago.
You may think those are low, but from what you're getting and where they're at academically, those are very high.
And when you figure exceeds is 40% and higher, we're above that 40%. Yeah.
And then you can see the 7-year rate was at 45.1%, exceed standards, and also the 8-year was at exceed standards at 57.9%. I could go into depth more here with our report card, but are there any specific questions that you might have?
And if people want to access that, you can on the ODE website.
You can pull up any school's report.
Yeah.
Well, I know that some Dusty schools, since that COVID, those kids that should have been in high school, they are so far behind. They are like reading at a, some of them can't even read at a 4th grade level. Their kids are just behind because of that whole thing with COVID.
Yeah, there's huge learning gaps.
Mhm.
Schools are kind of bad.
One other item, informational item that's not listed here. So we've been talking about our goals here. Our goals, you know, some of our goals align with literacy and also with math. To specifically target math and improving our ability to tutor math, we are going to send all of our teachers and all of our tutors and some of our administrators, including myself, to the Ohio Council of Teachers of Mathematics Conference, which is going to be held at Kalahari on October 12th and 13th. We've signed everybody up. We're going to make those 2 days remote learning days for our students, and we're going to get our staff trained in best practices in terms of teaching math, tutoring math, and hopefully we pick up a lot of useful golden nuggets at that conference, which is close by. I think it's great to take advantage of it, especially being right in our backyard here in Kalahari.
And just so you know, with Intel, how the governor wants science and reading, so you have to do science and reading as you attack, like ELA. He's big on the next movement being math. So when you go to Kalahari, they're going to talk about most of the research on getting kids to the level of mathematics and at algebra 1 levels, algebra 2 levels, and algebra 3 levels.
Perfect.
And with Intel coming into Ohio, they want to be like the technology state. So I mean, he's going to really. This is right out of Columbus in my VASA meetings. They're going to really push math. Really push math. That's why I think it's important for you to go to that. We have a bunch of teachers going to that too. I mean,
Along with that, we made some contacts with Bowling Green State University and have some possible speakers to come in and work with our staff directly with interventions in math also. So I'm hoping we can follow up with those folks. Okay.
I actually had them both, the two that said they were interested. I had them both as professors and they are wonderful. They're so great. Like I would love to have them here.
So that may be something you'll see coming down for professional development.
With Ed being president of VASA this year, you may remember I joined VASA as well. So I had the opportunity to go to the regional meeting they had yesterday at Perrysburg, which was very good and informative. And they did also highlight what Ed said, how right now the focus is on reading and literacy. On deck is definitely math. So like he said, it's coming. I'll be in Columbus Thursday for the subcommittee that deals with the state report card. That's the first of 3 meetings this year, so it'll be interesting to go down there and hear the dialogue the group talk about the state report card. I think the emphasis will probably be more on the traditional school report card, but maybe in time my presence on that committee maybe will cause them to maybe look at the dropout prevention report cards as well. One item that's not really being measured and the data's not there is that competency percentage for schools. You know, at high school level, the focus should not just be on proficiency, which is a 3 out of 5 anymore. We've got to have the data to measure what percentage of our students are competent, a 684, which is below a 3, but it's factoring into graduation pathways, it's factoring into seals, and when you pull your data up in the state reports portal, there's nowhere where it's measuring. And I think that's something that the state needs to address, is showing the breakdown of the data in terms of competency as well as looking at efficiency things.
So is that something you can bring up or address with people or see if it's going to be addressed?
That's definitely something that I would want to push us to have. And maybe it's not the first meeting, maybe it's the second.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and there are no other questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the new business.
Could I just ask you to report to the board how staff has responded to our building renovations?
Feedback's been extremely positive. I think our staff appreciated that. I have space now to kind of facilitate. Students have been really receptive to the changes. I think that the fact that we got rid of the glass walls has been a big positive, because so many of our students saw everybody walking by, their radar was always at a 10, and now the fact that they're behind a closed wall, they don't see everybody walking by, they're focused more on their business, what they're doing, their coursework, and not worried about who's walking by, who's looking at them, and that sort of thing. So we have had like very minimal issues in terms of discipline. It's been phenomenal through 3 weeks or so. So we're very pleased by the impact that the building configuration has had. In addition to that, the safety feature, our SRO Justin Sanchez shared in our safety meeting last week that Sheriff Sigsworth said that he thinks that our building is probably the safest building in the county now after those changes. So that's what that's good to hear.
And the furniture came in.
Yeah. Yes. Furniture came.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, we have a resolution to approve the awarding of high school diplomas to following students upon successful completion of graduation requirements as set forth by the state of Ohio. We have students listed there for 2023, 22, 23 diplomas, as well as 2023, 24 diplomas based upon when they finished up here over the last month. Item B is a resolution to announce the future use of a trained therapy dog owned by Leslie Gainer, who is our guidance counselor. Upon completion of training and licensure through Riley's Angels and in accordance with school policy, school will monitor the effects of the therapy dog and report back to the school board periodically. And if you remember from last month, we had some discussion on this. We will follow the past board adopted school policies on that, and we will continue to monitor the impacts that the dog has for our students.
Ours has been very.
Good.
Christine Smith has.
Okay.
It's been great.
Well, and it seemed as though Leslie was very mindful of what the policies were and appropriate use of the therapy dogs. Good.
Item C is a resolution to enter into a contract with starting for the 23-24 school year for special education services as needed. This is an annual approval that we have. Item D is a recommendation to purchase 45 Chromebooks through X-Tech Partner for a quoted cost of $14,760 using ESSER funds as presented. Item E then is a resolution to approve policy 148.6 for credit cards. This was a change of policy here. And we've been advised by Amy Goodson's law firm who have the changes, and there's a copy in your folder here. So along with this, there would be a maximum credit limit of $6,000 for the month, and each approved card holder or a person who will be given permission to use the card will be permitted to spend up $1,000. Our main use of the credit card, to be honest, is going to be fueling up our school band or bands if we have more down the road. And right now, Judy Protzman is running meals to Fremont and Sandusky. And every 4 or 5 days or so, we need to fuel up that van. And then right now, only Kelsey and I have permission to use the credit card. So the next item that I'm gonna be talking about here, which is item F, will give Judy the ability to use that credit card to fill the gas tank up, but also will give Bob Hamilton the ability to use the credit card if needed to run Sam's Club or somewhere like that.
Right now, I make all the Sam's Club trips and I would love to not do that.
Your food trips, those locations are priceless because if you feed them, they will come.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's why you would shop for those numbers, but because you're getting good food for the kids, I mean, they're safe, they can sell you, they get their work done, and get it fed.
Yeah, food is definitely good. So item E on credit cards, then ties to item F there. You'll notice the language is a little bit different here in F and G, and this is language from Amy Goodson's office. So on some of these items for approval, that's why they look a little different. Item F, it says resolve that the board of directors approves and adopts the credit card policy as presented and authorizes the school's credit accounts maximum credit limit to be $6,000 and monthly spending to be $1,000. Further resolved that the board of directors appoints the treasurer as the compliance officer pursuant to the policy, and further resolved that the board of directors hereby approves Kelsey Cromer, Ryan Bone, Judy Protzman, and Bob Hamilton as authorized users of the school credit card. And then item G pertains to getting quotes for school vans. It's very hard right now to find vans on a lot anywhere. And working with Matt Smith, and Margaret has just recently purchased 2 new school vans that are very nice. And they work with Ohio Schools Council, OSC, to get multiple bids and purchase vans that way, which makes the process a little bit easier. So we want to look at doing the same thing so that we can look at using those student wellness funds to purchase a couple of vans.
Because that's a consortium, you get cost savings on getting that product and many products.
Is there a cost for the service?
$300, we have to become members.
Okay,
You're,
To pay for stuff.
and then some.
Yeah, more so. I saw on the bids that they submitted in May, like the discount that they in it.
yeah, I would think so too, but I figured it was a cost.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I don't think it's part of this, so it's part of the resolution.
I don't think it is.
Don't we need to?
So this we got from Amy. Amy gave us the wording for this actually yesterday, I believe. I'm gonna go ahead and read through it here. Item G, whereas the Townsend Community School Board of Directors wishes to advertise and receive bids for the purchase of 2 vans designed to carry no more than 9 passengers, excluding the driver. Therefore, be it resolved, the Townsend Community School Board of Directors wishes to participate and authorizes the Ohio Schools Council to advertise and receive bids on behalf of said board as per the specifications submitted for the cooperative purchase of 2 vans designed to carry no more than 9 passengers, excluding the driver. Whereas Townsend Community School is a member of the Ohio Schools Council, and whereas on November 3rd, 2023, the Ohio Schools Council received bids for vehicles for school transportation on behalf of its members. Therefore, be it resolved, Townsend Community School Board of Directors authorizes the purchase of 2 vans designed to carry no more than 9 passengers, excluding the driver.
I feel like the second paragraph saying, we authorize them to advertise and we wish to participate, I feel like that covers that.
Yeah.
And that's the final item that I have for board approval. Again, we had talked about having some annual board policies approved this month. But our legal team needs a little bit more time to review those and cross-check them with our policies, since they're not as familiar with our policies right now. But we'll try to do that in October.
Is there a motion to approve items A through G of the superintendent's report?
Move.
Okay, moved by Israel, seconded by Dora. Go ahead, the roll, please.
Mr. Palmer.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. At this time, I would entertain a motion to move into executive session for 2 purposes. 1, to discuss the position and or employment of school employees, and 2, to discuss conferences with a school attorney concerning pending litigation. Is there a motion to move into executive session? Second. We'll have the roll, we'll do so at 7:04.
Mr.
And would you be willing to just stay another 5 minutes for
Sure.
this? Okay. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yeah.
Mr. Plum.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. We'll come out of executive session at 7:27. And with no action taken. We're going to add action item H. Is there a motion to increase responsibilities for Judy Crossman to a full-time position? As of this date. Moved by Dora,
Second.
second by Kent.
Can we,
Shall we specify the
Yeah.
salary then?
can we also verify, like, when her salaries, like, because she's right now, she's reporting hours, I need to know what I paid her hourly for, you know, like, what is my
Let's start this on the following Monday, so next week.
So the 25th,
Yeah.
as of 9:25.
At a salary that aligns with her current rate, which is $20 per hour, so she'll become full-time status. With what would normally be a 182-day contract, however, it's gonna be prorated as the start date. Yeah,
It
basically,
applies to the current hourly rate. At a prorated,
per diem rate would be 7.5 hours times $20 an hour, which is $150 per diem.
under. Prorated for the remaining school year.
$150 per diem plus benefits.
So we do not indicate the exhibit B.
Is everyone clear on what the motion is?
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You want to have the roll instead of that?
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Plum,
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes. And action item I to authorize the addition of 2 student and family engagement specialist positions that would be full-time at a salary of $34,125 annually.
Ryan, is that what you're,
Yeah, from
Is that-
That's what was on.
is that, okay, is that prorated?
so that it would be prorated from it, that would be full 182 days. So I divide that by 82 real quick. 7.50 cents.
Yeah. 34,125.
Then non-administrative exhibit B,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
and then also non-administrative exhibit B.
That's right. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Kent,
Second.
seconded by Dora. Go ahead, the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant, Mr. Plum.
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes. I have no further business. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Kent, seconded. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll do it.
All right, Israel.
Thought Dora was on it.
I know, 7:30, she was giving you a chance.
Thank you,
Meeting
Dora.
adjourned at 7:31.
Aye, yes.
Wonderful, thank you.